Hey everyone, I'm T Frank and today I'm back with another video. I wanted to talk about the M6 Mark II. I actually had an opportunity to test this camera out for the past week or so and I really enjoyed using it. However, I did have some pros and cons, so I kind of want to go ahead and discuss those pros and cons. A lot of you may be M50 owners just like I am, and you may want to upgrade and you're probably a little bit disappointed with the M50 Mark II. I think that the M6 Mark II is a very great option, and in this video we're going to go ahead and discuss a few things. So without further delay, let's go ahead and jump into that. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and talk about is the build. So coming from the M50, the M6 Mark II is definitely superior in the build. It has a more, I don't even know what kind of texture it has on the camera, but it just feels a lot more solid and just feels better in the hands. It also has a bigger grip in the front, so that grip is going to allow you to actually use lenses that are a little bit bigger and a little bit front heavy, and I think it accommodates those lenses quite well. Another thing that I really like about it is that it has more dials and buttons on it. Now, I used to shoot with the M100, and on the M100 it didn't have those things, but you could find it in the settings, and I actually found that to be a lot less intimidating for a beginner. But now I've been using cameras for a while now, I'm a little bit more comfortable with them, so I find the dials and the buttons, the extra buttons on the camera, to be actually super helpful. I've actually been shooting a little bit more, doing a lot more pictures, I guess, for work. And I had a situation where I did an event and I was going in and out at different areas and I was expected to shoot pretty quickly. With those settings on the camera, I was able to, modify my exposure settings and pretty much nail the focus the majority of the time. So that is definitely something that I like on this M6 Mark II. So another thing that I really like having as an option on the M6 Mark II is the ability to use uncropped 4K. So it's actually shooting in 4K and it's using the full sensor. Where this benefits you is if you're in a small room like what I'm in now, if I had a camera that I was shooting in 4K and it had a crop, I honestly wouldn't be able to get the shot that I'm getting now, which, I had to kind of work with what I have. So with the M6 Mark II, I didn't have any issues because there is no crop, So that is definitely a plus. Another thing that Canon did, and I have to give them, a slight nod for, is that they put dual pixel autofocus in 4K on the M6 Mark II. As you know, the M50 does not have this. So for me, you can kind of use the M50 in 4K. It's just, you're gonna have to probably shoot in manual, and you really, it's not gonna be as easy of an experience as it will be on the M6 Mark II. So having that on this camera is definitely one of my favorite things that I like about this camera. I think that Canon should go ahead and stop playing and put this in their other cameras, but that's another story for another day. So another thing that I really like on the M6 Mark II is that it does have clean HDMI, so this is definitely a selling point for this camera. The M50, of course, does not have that. The M50 Mark II does have it, but like I said, a lot of those upgrades, I don't really know if jumping from the M50 to the M50 Mark II is really an upgrade. With all of the things that I'm hopefully listing in this video, you'll find that the true upgrade is jumping from the M50 to the M6 Mark II. So the clean HDMI is definitely a plus for streaming, and especially with now, like we're doing a lot of Zoom calls and all of that. So having that on there is definitely a plus and clutch in my opinion. Another pro for the M6 Mark II is the fact that it does have USB Type-C. So, a lot of cameras and pretty much a lot of tech are moving, in that direction. So it's really good to see it on the M6 Mark II. Another benefit of that is being able to use like a power bank and actually just, as long as it has power delivery, you can plug it in and say you forget, your batteries or whatever, you can actually charge that on the go. I actually have a video that I just did on the Canon RP top accessories, and I talked about that in that video. So definitely check that out. Another pro for the M6 Mark II is that it's actually using the same battery that's found in the Canon RP. So it's actually using the LP, I think it's the LPE17, if that's incorrect, I'll I'll put the correct one somewhere on the screen. But I do like that it's using that, so you're gonna get a little bit better battery life. And right now with the M50, I carry around 3 batteries. So if I can kind of reduce that, that would be great. And also having it share the same batteries as the RP makes it easier for me when I'm carrying all my gear. Another thing that I like about the M6 Mark II, and this is from the photography standpoint, is the 14 frames per second in continuous shooting. So this is super quick. It's gonna allow you to capture those moments. So say you're shooting some sports photography, or I don't know, whatever else is really quick and you need 14 frames per second, this little body can handle that. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys listen to 14 frames per second. So another thing that this camera has that I really do like is 120 frames per second. However, it is slightly limited, so you're losing autofocus and you're losing sound, and you're also losing one other thing that I'll put up on the screen because I don't remember it right now. The sound isn't an issue for me, but the autofocus is an issue. I really don't understand why Canon can't just give it to us all at once. You know, it's kind of like they give us little things in bits and increments, and then, you know, they'll put it on the higher end cameras, but I definitely think they should have put it on the M6 Mark II. So while I'm listing this as a pro, it's also a con at the same time because of the limitations. And another thing that I should mention with Canon cameras is the ease of use. When I got the M6 Mark II, like I said, I only had it for a week or so, but as soon as I got the camera, I knew how to work the menus. I knew how to, you know, change my settings. I normally will update my menu so I can get to things quickly, you know, and it was just super easy to use. And that's one thing that you want with a camera. Not only is it easy for me to transition and use another Canon camera, but also if I give the camera to my dad or my sister, you know, just someone that doesn't, you know, typically use cameras, it's something that's going to be easy for them to use. So the first thing that's a con for me is actually the tilting screen, which is kind of weird because initially I had the M100 and the tilting, you know, the 180 screen didn't really bother me. However, now in my style of shooting, it's slightly changed, and the tilting screen can kind of be an issue at some points. A lot of times I like to grab overhead shots. I don't have an overhead rig, so I actually just, you know, put it on my tripod and I put it up really high. And normally with the articulating screen, I can kind of tilt the screen so that I can still see when it's that high. With this camera, because it only has a 180, I really can't tilt it down, so I have a hard time seeing from up above. So that's just one issue, you know, that I've had with the tilting screen. Another issue that I have with the tilting screen is that when you flip it up, if you try to touch some of the settings down at the bottom, it's kind of blocked, so it makes it a little bit difficult. And when you push it back, it actually flips the screen, like the picture of it, it flips it upside down. So that's another issue that you'll have probably with the tilt up screen. It may seem like it's minor, but I do want to mention it in here because it's a little frustrating. But I do have other cameras with the fully articulating screen, so when I need the fully articulating screen, I'll use those other cameras. So another con for me is that the 120 frames per second, it's available, however, it has the limitations, those that I discussed, you know, previously in this video. So you're losing the sound, you're losing autofocus, and I think it's also servo. You lose that as well. Another thing that is a con with the M6 Mark II for me is the price. I think that normally, you know, brand new is around $849, which it may seem reasonable. However, it's really getting close to the territory of, you know, what you could pay for a Canon RP. Now, with these two cameras, you kind of can go back and forth and debate, because I actually think that there are a lot of qualities on the M6 Mark II that are actually better than on the RP. However, with the RP being full frame, I actually like, for pictures, I like the look of the full frame better than the crop sensor. And that's just my personal preference. The issue with the price is for $849, you can get this APS-C size sensor camera, or for $899, you know, when the RP is on sale, you can get the RP. So it's kind of just, I don't know, I think the price range is a little bit high. I'll actually mention too that the M6 Mark II is actually now on sale refurbished with Canon. And this camera, this is the first time it's appearing refurbished. So over the holidays, they did have it for about $650, I think. And that is a great deal, you know, $200 off. And with the refurbished cameras, you know, you get the 1-year warranty. You also get the 14-day return policy. So if you get it and you don't like it, you know, you can send it back. And if you aren't new to the channel, you know that I've picked up a lot of refurbished gear, you know, the Canon 80D. I also picked up a lens. So I actually do recommend, if you are looking at this, look into buying it refurbished and save some money. And then you can also use that money to just in turn, you know, get some better glass to go with it. My last con with this camera is the EFM mount. And like many others, I have criticized this mount because I really just don't feel like Canon is going to continue to put a lot of energy and effort into creating more glass for this mount. So then it also leaves you to think, like, are they really going to continue to invest in this system? And if they're not going to invest in the system, should you invest in the system, or should you go ahead and go with their R line? Because honestly, I think the R line is where Canon is going. They are bringing out some really good lenses for the R line. So that kind of makes this a difficult decision on whether or not you should go ahead and upgrade and continue to invest in this M line. So that pretty much concludes my thoughts on the Canon M6 Mark II. I definitely think this is the camera that you should upgrade from if you're coming from an M50. I don't think that you should get the M50 Mark II, being that it's such an incremental upgrade. I think the M6 Mark II has some big leaps over the M50 and is a solid pickup. So thank you guys, as always, for taking the time to watch this video. I'm T Frank, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.